how to describe How to Become Ordinary, the new anime series in the summer 2024 anime season. Beautiful cinema of mundane life is the best way to put it. Truth be told, I was eagerly anticipating How to Become Ordinary. Just the PVs looked fantastic. It looked gorgeous. The character designs were great. Everything was pointing to this being a really good-looking mystery show written by the guy that did Hyoka. Now, granted, I have not watched Hyoka yet. I have it, I own it, and I've been wanting to watch it for a long time. I know that it has a really strong cult following, but I don't know what to expect. I just expect that people enjoyed it. And after watching the first 3 episodes of How to Become Ordinary, I can honestly say I'm super mixed because on one hand, I like how the show looks and how it's portrayed, but at the same time, I can't help but say it's extremely boring a lot of the time. It's sort of one of those series that is mundane, but every now and then it throws something at you that makes you question what's coming up next. It's one of those types of things. It's just constantly you're wondering what is the purpose of the show. And then at these later points of each episode, suddenly out of nowhere, it throws something at you. It makes you go, are we going in a dark direction? Question mark. But anyways, let's get into my thoughts on the first 3 episodes. Let's jump into it. Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, opens up with 2 individuals, Kobato and Osanai. And the 2 of them have made a pact at some point that they're going to start their new high school life being ordinary. We get a sense later on through somebody that knew Kobato when he was in middle school that he was kind of a know-it-all. He was kind of a jerk know-it-all. Whenever somebody knew something that he didn't, he would just get infuriated. But now he's, again, trying to be normal. And yes, even that person that knew him in middle school questions this. Like, dude, what happened? Did you get bullied? Did you have some kind of trauma? Why are you acting this way? Why are you acting like somebody who just accepts everything and looks like he has a chip on his shoulder? But yeah, as they start the new high school year, Kobato ends up getting roped in by this guy, Kingo, who is the guy that knows him from middle school, to kind of look for this purse that some girl got lost. They end up finding out that it was some dude hiding it because he put a love letter in there. Eventually, Osanai and Kobato end up going to this pastry place, at which point some guy ends up stealing her bike and messing up her pastries. She ends up getting called into the counseling office because they end up spotting the bike at some place where some stuff was stolen. In the second episode, that's when we have Kingo, the guy from middle school, confronting Kobato about the fact that he is, acting normal and what happened to him. Then when we go into the third episode, that's when we have the reveal that they've rediscovered where the bike is. And then this point, Yuki Osanai is presenting to Kobato the idea of getting back at the person that stole the bike. Getting revenge, basically. And that's pretty much the gist so far. At some point, Kobato ends up confronting Kengo, this friend of his, and kind of presenting to him to stop Osanai, or at least help her get revenge so that she doesn't because she's in danger. And that's kind of where it leaves at. Which gets into my thoughts on How to Become Ordinary. As you can tell, not an extremely exciting show so far. Again, just 2 individuals trying to be normal, and Kobato essentially helping a bunch of people with these different mysteries. And they're always like very mundane mysteries. They're very dumb mysteries. Like, where's this purse at? Gotta figure out where the purse is and figure out who stole it. They even had this whole segment where they're trying to figure out how Kingo made hot cocoa with only 3 glasses and a spoon, when you typically need to mix it in a certain way, the way that he did it. And it just turns into this big old long mystery about how to cook 3 cups of cocoa with a microwave. They're very dumb. They're very dumb mysteries that really have no substance to it whatsoever. But there's one thing about the series, like I mentioned at the very beginning, that kind of keeps me going despite all this. There's this strong emphasis between Kobato and Osanai about them becoming normal. There's this kind of hint that they made this promise at some point, and there's a sense that they can always lose themselves, like they can fall back into or become a different person. And I will admit that the OP kind of messed me up, because the OP keeps showing these symbolisms of 2 wolves running around. And I kept thinking, okay, is this going to be one of those things where is it that obvious that the 2 of them are wolves trying to hide themselves in society? But I sort of think that's a misdirection because there's so much emphasis on Kobato being in middle school and being a jerk. So it does seem like that is the thing that he's trying to change. That is the thing that he's trying to become ordinary from. There's even this whole segment where Kingo is confronting him and saying, look, why don't you be your old self? I don't like your new self. Yes, you were a jerk. You are a know-it-all jerk. What is so wrong with you figuring out everything? You're so good at that. Kabato's whole thing is that he's so good at figuring things out before anybody else. He arrives at the conclusion. But Kobato tells him, I don't like that because I solve so many difficult things for people and people think me less and it causes problems. It turns into me getting my nose in where it shouldn't belong, and people hate me for it. So I'm tired of doing that. So at least it indicates the fact that it's not so much he's a wolf or anything like that. It's just that he's a know-it-all, and he's very good at figuring things out, and he's kind of tired of that. I would assume that he probably figured something out in the past, and it got him in trouble. Like, he got too much hate for figuring something out. Probably figured out that somebody did something wrong, and that person's life got destroyed by it, and he kind of regrets it. But either way, it seems like, at least for Kobato, that his new ordinary life is to stop figuring things out. And so I do see a sort of story reason for everything that we've had so far. The idea of him trying to figure out the stupid Coco or whatever is really just him being unable to leave that behind. I was supposed to be ordinary, but I keep falling into this. Now, Osanai is the question mark. And it seems like so far with the first 3 episodes, there really hasn't been any indication about what Osanai is trying to become ordinary from, except for the very end of the 3rd episode. And I think that's probably going to be the big hook for most people, is the question mark, could this go in a very interesting and possibly dark direction? Because Osanai also wanted to be ordinary, has been trying very hard to just be a normal girl. But unfortunately, this dude comes out of nowhere, steals her bike. She gets in trouble for the fact that she let somebody steal her bike. She was being questioned as a thief. It's ruining her ordinary life. And then question what it means to be ordinary and saying that you're content with what you have. Her response is, how about you fight for what you have? So it turns into this whole thing where she's claiming basically that she's going to get her revenge on the guy that stole her bike, which this scares Kobato. Kobato is suddenly wanting Kengo to get involved and get the revenge for her so that she doesn't do something. He's claiming that so that Osanai doesn't get hurt when she goes to get revenge, but there's a side of me that kind of wonders if what Osanai's thing is going to be, that she's becoming ordinary from, is maybe possibly violent tendencies. I'm starting to think that Osanai might just be a very violent girl from the past, and now she's trying to be normal alongside Kobato. So yes, despite my intrigue that comes from the OP that I felt like it might be a spoiler there, I'm coming to the conclusion that it just might simply be the idea of one person that just can't help but get involved with everything and try to figure things out. He's constantly getting sidetracked with mysteries, trying to stop that because he helped people too much. They started thanking him less, and they started hitting him for getting his nose in where it doesn't belong. And Osanai, who possibly was just violent in the past, and she's trying to not be violent. And this is where, again, it kind of sucks, because I find this part really fascinating about this show. And again, it's presented so beautifully. Like, the show is just cinematic, it's beautiful, the perspective shots, it's full widescreen, it has just great visuals and everything like that, the portrayal of the characters. Yes, even though Osanai and Kobato are very monotone, they don't have any emotion, which is, again, going to their character of trying to be normal and not to be expressive. There's even very few times where you get to see them be expressive, and it's usually these points where they're losing control of themselves. So despite the fact that they're monotone, they're very well portrayed. It's a very beautiful show about mundane life with this little sprinkle of, what the hell is wrong with these two? And that's the intriguing thing. That's the thing that kind of makes me want to keep going forward. So much so that I kind of wanted to wait until episode 4, which would be pretty much almost halfway through the show because it's only going to be 10 episodes. But unfortunately, that episode's been delayed because of the Olympics. Despite the fact that they're very monotone, I do like the chemistry between Kobato and Osanai. It is really like they're always keeping each other in check. This idea of constantly telling each other, calm down, or hey, if you do lose yourself, just use me as an excuse. I'll support you. We made this promise together. We're going to support each other. A large standard of comfortness that the two of them have versus anybody else. Even with Kengo, who's known Kobato for a long time, there's a sense that he wants to get more involved with Kobato and figure out what's wrong with him. But at the same time, Kobato doesn't want to accept it. Kengo seems to have a strong sense of justice. Like that whole thing with the whole purse. It's like he just blows it out of proportion to try to find this purse and get the police involved when it's just a simple purse that has nothing of value in it. And it seems like the same case for Kobato when he's trying to figure out what is changed with him. He's just kind of digging into him because he has this desire to find that trigger, to find that problem, that trauma, to see if he can figure it out. Which, yes, does technically lead the series into being sort of in the realm of melodrama. The idea that these things are so blown out of proportion that it does make me kind of wonder, is it ramped up because that's just how the writer is, or is there just some oddity here? Like, I will admit early on in the series, I was questioning if this is some sort of weird broken society that has this sense of normality. Like early on, Kobato lists out these rules and how to be ordinary, and it's all this idea of not standing out and do everything possible to avoid anything that interferes with that. And it's like, is this what society deems it? Like this is some sort of rule that this society has, and that's why Kengo is just going way out of his way over a stupid purse? Or is it just these rules they made for themselves? And that seemed like the case. It just, these rules it made for themselves. But because of that, it kind of leads the story and the world to feel off. Like this, everything just kind of feels off. But despite all that, I'm intrigued. I think the 4th episode is going to be massively telling. I want to see what Osanai does. Does she go off the hook? Does she do something crazy? What kind of transpires from Osanai? Because I think her actions will probably tell me if this show is going to have a really good twist to it that will intrigue me going forward. If it doesn't, and it just resolves with, I don't know, another debate about Coco, it's going to be hard to continue this show. It's going to be hard to continue this show because it is one of those cases where you're intriguing me, you keep baiting me along, but you're not giving me anything to really keep biting into it. But we'll see. But that's my thoughts on how to become ordinary so far. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit that like button down below, comment. Let me know what's the good series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have Patreon link, tips, links, to the links, membership button below. Greatly appreciate it, but it does. Y'all take care.